Hello, my name is Dr. Irina Goch, and welcome to my channel where I will be talking with professionals and academic in IB field, international business strategy, innovation, where we will be talking about important questions in international business strategy and innovation. And my first guest, very special guest, is Professor Fragkiskos Filippaios. Fragkiskos was my PhD supervisor and a very special person for me, who I now work closely as a colleague, which I'm very proud of. Fragkiskos, over to you. Can you please introduce yourself and tell about your international business journey, how you decide to study IB, how you decided to teach IB?
Thank you very much, Irina. Let me just start by saying it's a pleasure being here with you, and a pleasure, being one of the first speakers in this series, talking about international business strategy and innovation. So I'm a professor of international business. I'm working at Norwich Business School at the University of East Anglia. It's located in Norwich, in Norfolk, in England. And also I'm a deputy director for an organization called SENSE, which is Southeast Network for Social Sciences, which is one of the 14 doctoral training partnerships that offers funded PhDs to students in order to complete projects in general in social sciences, not simply business and management. So being a professor and also being the deputy director take most of my time together with the rest of my family, with the 2 kids I have, of course. I've got a very interesting journey coming into the international business. I have to admit that my original training is an economist. I did all my studies in a university in Athens. The Athens University of Economics and Business is the most prestigious Greek institution in business and economics. My first 2 degrees, my bachelor's and my master's degree, are both in what we call European International Economic Studies, looking at European integration, looking at international economics, looking at trade theories. And then when I decided to move and do my PhD, I wanted to bring that business element into my thinking and into my studies. So my PhD was on the way multinationals make location decisions. Obviously, I have moved away from the trade. I have moved away from other non-equity structures and looked at foreign direct investment directly. It took me a few years, and I always had this passion of moving abroad. And obviously, being a Greek, living all my life in Athens, I wanted to challenge myself. And I think that's one important issue for all international business students. You need to be able to challenge your boundaries. You need to be able to find ways that make you uncomfortable in order to find, your comfort zones and change your comfort zones. So I decided to take a big step and relocate to the UK. On my own. I still remember the flights to the UK. It was just a couple of days before the closing ceremony of the Olympic Games in Athens. 2004 was a big year for us Greeks. And, it was just simply after an interview I had at the University of Kent. And then I moved over to Kent, stayed for about 3 weeks in a hotel, and then found a place to stay. I worked at Kent for most of my career so far. I worked in other multicultural institutions like the London School of Economics, Kingston University. I was managing an MBA program that we had operations in Moscow, a big learning kind of period for me, dealing with international cultures, which is really important. Moved back to Kent, and now since last April, almost a year ago, moved to the University of East Anglia and Norwich Business School.
Thank you. I think that you had a really fascinating journey to IB. You slightly touched on that, but maybe you can reiterate, if for the students who are going to watch this recording, what are the most fascinating aspects of international business for you?
I think one thing that we need to bear in mind is that organizations consist of people. human resources is the most important resource in every organization. You can replace capital, you can replace machinery, you can do whatever you want with the physical infrastructure. The one thing that you cannot replace in an organization is its human capital. And human capital for me, and that is also reflected in my publications, my most recent publication in the Journal of International Business Studies talks about human capital and the way human capital interacts with, the institutional environment in different locations in attracting foreign direct investment. So I think the most challenging area is that the understanding and the ability to coordinate human capital across borders. And obviously there implicitly there is an element about psychic distance and cultural distance, because people have different backgrounds, people go through different educational systems, they go through different kind of institutional processes, they have been kind of brought up in different norms. And implicitly also what we have to think there about is the cognitive element of that, in the way we approach reality, in the way we understand reality, and that sometimes that has an element of subconsciousness. So understanding culture, being aware of culture, because for me culture is something that you cannot be taught. It's simply becoming aware. It's simply building your experiences. What Uppsala School of Thought is talking about, the multinational and the way the multinational is reducing the distance, is this element of experimenting, is this element of being open to other people's views and other people's thinking, and is also building tolerance into your thinking process in order to understanding. One of the issues that we have with culture is this myopia, that we tend to basically see ourselves as the most important, the most dominant one, and you need to get away from that perspective if you want to work in an international business environment and be successful in that. And it's actually one of the most challenging things for anybody to do. But being an 18-year-old, a 19-year-old, or a 20-year-old, you have far more opportunities to do that, because you're far more open-minded than someone who's reached its 50s like myself, that have already established my norms and my understanding of reality.
I think that is, you touched on a very important point that is also related to my next question, which is about skills for IB graduates. I think that cultural awareness is going to be one of those skills. Perhaps you can tell a bit more about other skills that you consider important.
Of course. So cultural awareness, we've talked about it already. It's an important skill to be able to understand. Being tolerant is something else. One of the things I would say it's quite important for international business students is, if they have the opportunity and if they're offered the opportunity through the university years to study for a second or third language. I consider languages a very important skill. Languages is one of the main ways of communicating culture, and language is also giving you the opportunity to tap into other cultures through not only business means, but also through, for example, literature. You can read the original, you don't need to read the translation, and this is the way you can understand culture far better. So cultural awareness, languages. I would also really think that in this modern period we're living, the way the world is changing very quickly around us, you would need to have IT skills as well. It's really, really important. And when I'm into IT skills, I don't necessarily talk about the use of social network that I imagine most of the 18 and 19-year-old people have, but the ability to understand the new trends, where new trends are coming from, what is the needs for people, and link those IT skills with entrepreneurial skills. Take risks. You are in if we're talking to an undergraduate audience or a postgraduate audience here, I'm making the assumption that most of them are relatively young, in the 18 to 25. Obviously, there are mature students among them as well, but the ability to take risks in these, in that stage of your life is much better. You can make mistakes, and you won't suffer from those mistakes.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it also allows you, as you said before, to grow your comfort zone. not just step out of it, but to grow it when you take the risk. And the university setting allows us to take those risks and then to do it in a safe space. The international business has connections with many disciplines. We know that international business originates from economics. That was the initial sort of setting where IB emerged, from which IB emerged. In your opinion, what are the 3 non-IB areas that international business graduates should be familiar with?
If you're talking about someone who wants to have a career in business and management, I think one of the most important things you need to put there is elements of accounting. And I know it's a hard thing to say. Most people don't like accounting, but I remember, one of very senior people, very senior professionals I've never met in my life, said to me, if you want to become a manager and you don't know how to read a balance sheet, or if you don't know how to read a profit and loss account, then your accountants can easily lie to you. So the ability to understand that, especially when it comes to international context, because you might have different accounting standards in different countries. You've got obviously the international financial standards now that are coming into play, is really, really important. The second area, which I think quite important, is business analytics. And business analytics, we're living in a period where information is key. And also we're living in a period where we are actually bombarded by a lot of information. And information is key, and the ability to analyze that information and make decisions, informed decisions, is actually quite important. The third area, and if you allow me here, I will move away from traditional business and management, because I have found myself in embracing that area quite a lot, is the area of psychology. Psychology gives you the tools to understand different phenomena in the society, gives you the tool to understand human behavior in a slightly different way that you could have. If anybody wants to obviously link that with business and management, they can talk about organizational psychology, the way organizations develop themselves and change themselves and integrate new people. So these would be the 3 key areas I would consider really, really important for any business graduate.
And I think also this will link to the future direction of IB job markets, because those areas can become very important for IB graduates when they are looking for a job. But when we're talking about the job market, in your opinion, what is the future direction for IB graduates in IB, specifically in IB job market?
Well, obviously, there is an issue here with the way we approach reality today, and we're in a period, of abnormality in terms of our lives because of COVID-19. But I think if and when we return back to a normal period of working, I think the most important, the key word that I would characterize an IB graduate is a citizen of the world. The ability to live and work in different environments, the ability to live and work in different time zones, the ability to understand people and understand different, consumers, human resources in all these different environments, and gradually be able to develop that awareness and develop that skill, which is embedding yourself in a culture in a seamless way.
I think you sort of answered my next question about uncertainty, the role of uncertainty in IB. I think what you've said and what I can agree with is that indeed we need to become a global citizens, and we perhaps need to learn how to live within this uncertainty. But perhaps you also can suggest something more specific on the role of uncertainty in international business in light of COVID, of course, COVID-19.
Well, uncertainty comes in different shapes and forms, and COVID-19 and the way COVID-19 has changed our lives almost overnight is one of those things. You can see the way multinationals have actually trying to address that. I've been talking to colleagues from around the world, people that are working in large multinational organizations. They have now moved a lot of the things online. The technology now act as a facilitator. And I think it's really, really important to understand also the role of technology in moderating uncertainty, because technology is a tool that allows us to access information. And for a lot of the multinationals and for a lot of senior people, that was actually their first response, and remains the key response. Through technological change, through the Internet of Things, through the Industrial Revolution number 4, we are able to maintain at least a level of economic functionality as to what it was before. And I think if we think really carefully about the role of technology in our lives, we can actually find solutions, innovative solutions, talking about innovation, innovative solutions that will enable us to maintain the current economic activity, and return back to some form of normality.
Great. And my last question is if you can provide any advice for those students who are going to be watching this recording. Any word of advice?
So I think being open, study hard, it's really, really important. Make mistakes and learn from those mistakes. It links to being open. The university, has very nicely, you said it, Irina, earlier, it's a laboratory. You can experiment. It's a stage of your life that you can actually make mistakes that are not going to be hurtful. Travel if you can, learn, speak to other people, and listen. Listening is a really, really important skill to have. Listen to what others have to say and be tolerant with others' views. Try to understand their perspectives.
Thank you very much, Fragkiskos. I asked you all the questions that I wanted to ask, and thank you very much for being my first guest, and thank you very much for taking your time in order to record this session with me. Thank you.
Thank you, Irina. It has been a pleasure for me contributing to your session as well.
Thank you. Bye-bye.